Catherine. Today I'm talking a bit more about the Glowforge Pro. I have a review that you can check out if you'd like just the overview, but today I'm going to talk about my top 4 things about the Glowforge after having used it for a few weeks. So to give you a little bit of context, I've worked with laser cutters for over 10 years, ever since I was in college building models, and right now I own a Dremel Digilab hobbyist level laser cutter. And I have this Glowforge because my company that I work for bought it for the design studio. I get to hang on to it for the first couple months until we're back in the studio. And while I have it, I'm doing some reviews and trying it out and building materials so I can teach my coworkers how to use it once it's in the studio. So my top 4 things. The first thing that I love about the Glowforge is how it looks. The physical design of the Glowforge itself is really beautiful. It has the nice chrome details. It is really polished, simple exterior design. And there's a couple specific things about this design that I really do love. The first is this extra little door. So we have the large door, which holds up really well. It holds its place. This is an extra little door. Look, I love that. It opens up and gives you full access to the bed, which is completely different than my other laser cutter. But what's really nice about this, it makes it easy to get the honeycomb, or what they call the crumb tray, out of the laser cutter so that you can clean it and dump out all of the stuff that gets in here. It makes it easy to get it in and out. The next thing I really like about the hardware is this honeycomb is ferrous or magnetic. So that's really awesome because when you have something like paper or tissue paper, I've been laser cutting tissue paper shapes to make collages, and that stuff flies around all over the place. But if this is magnetic, you can actually use magnets to hold down that paper so that the air doesn't blow it around. It's awesome. Not all of the honeycombs are magnetic, so that is a great feature. The last thing about the hardware is the ventilation. So this Glowforge Pro, we also bought the ventilation unit for it. And what that does is it plugs into the back, and I'm gonna pick up the camera for this. Let me show you. So around the back, we have the dryer hose that comes through and goes straight down into the ventilation unit. It's really straightforward. It has an on button, and then on the back, this adjusts how hard the air is flowing. So when it's new, it doesn't need to pull the air out as easily, but when it starts getting full, it needs to pull air out more. So super easy to use. I love it. And it's very easy to hook up. So that's the first thing that I love about Glowforge, is this physical design and the nice little elements that they have put a lot of thought and detail into. The second thing that I love about Glowforge is the software. Y'all, the software is great. They have put a lot of time and effort into that software for it to be intuitive and work well. And I'm literally a software designer. That's what I do for my day job, so I appreciate it a lot. A couple specific things in the software UI that is great is the way that they've approached the files. When you bring a file in that you've designed, it automatically kind of does some calculations and it makes layers for you. So you can see the different lines, paths, and then with those different layers, you can reorder them in order to say what goes first for the laser cutter to tackle. And then you can also set different settings for each layer. And one additional thing that I love is that it allows you to ignore layers. So just because it's in your file doesn't mean the laser cutter has to see it. You can tell it to ignore that layer, and then it's not going to do anything with those lines. That's incredibly helpful when you're doing certain aspects of laser cutting, or if you need to run a file again for just one of those layers, you don't have to delete a bunch of stuff, you can just ignore the layers and resend it. The third thing that I love about the Glowforge are some of the functions within the software. So previously I was talking about just the software design. Now I'm talking about some of the specific features that software enables you to do. First up, you can make files from scratch in the software. That's great because a lot of people don't have access to design tools. I personally use Adobe Illustrator to design all of my laser files. It just gives me a level of control that I specifically like to have. But Illustrator is kind of expensive. And if you don't need additional software, you can just do all of the designs in the Glowforge software. That saves you an extra step. So they have things like different shapes, tools, text. You can also bring in designs from the community and from their catalog. Use those as a starting off point and then kind of play with it and add your own aspects to it. That's awesome. You can also draw designs, put it in the laser bed, have it kind of scan it, and then you can do laser cutting with those drawings. I don't use that very often because, like I said, I like a very high level of control for my designs, but that's a great way to add kind of handwriting. If you do calligraphy, that'd be so cool. I don't, but I would love to see someone do that. Continuing on the software features, you can use the Glowforge app without the machine being on. That is one benefit to the software being in the cloud. You can access it from any computer that has Wi-Fi. You can set up your files and get all your files ready, and then you can go turn the machine on. That's great because you're not wasting electricity. You can get a lot of files ready and just kind of prep and then turn your laser cutter on and send them one by one to be processed and then to the laser cutter. So that's really helpful for just prepping and having a workflow for your laser cutting files. When I make my files with Illustrator, I save them out as PDFs, just because that's my normal workflow. And what's nice about uploading those PDFs is that the Glowforge software actually separates them into layers, or actually sees the layers that were in Illustrator and sets it up accordingly. It can see what's grouped and what's not grouped for the different lines. And so now instead of having to save out multiple files for something that's etched versus something that's scored, I can upload all of it, and then it separates it into those layers like I talked about, and then I can assign the different settings per layer. So that's really awesome. It's nice that the software can do some of that automatically for me. And finally, for the software features, when you open it up, it'll show you the last image of the bed. If your machine is on, it'll update that image. And as you're cutting and doing multiple jobs, it will update that image as you go. That's really awesome. It does it automatically. And that's because the image is the main way of setting up your file and placing it in the proper place. So Glowforge has this one camera that does the image of the bed, and that allows for pretty good file placement. You'll see in my next video of 5 things I don't like about Glowforge, that it doesn't work 100% for me, but for most people, that one image and laying out based on the image is going to be enough for what you're working on. My 4th favorite thing about the Glowforge is how the settings work. When you are in the software and you are creating a material setting, if you're not using one of their proprietary materials, if you are, it'll put the settings in for you, which is great. That's helpful. But a lot of my materials are not Glowforge specific materials because I buy them at a much lower cost from other suppliers. So for that, I need to put my own settings in. And the settings are quite intuitive and clear. For cutting, it's speed and power. That is the industry standard. So when I'm doing designs on Epilogue and Universal, it's speed and power. And that's for cutting and scoring. when you're doing rastering or engraving, you're going to do speed, power, and usually frequency, or another setting that indicates how intense or how much infill is happening with that engraving. And Glowforge has done a good job of keeping that pretty clear and straightforward. Some of the other hobbyist laser cutters try to make it easier by having different names for it, or like my Dremel for cutting and scoring has 3 settings, like a speed, a depth, and a heat. And I can't tell you what the different things do. I set things, but whatever. Speed and power is all you need. So it's nice that Glowforge sticks with that. And I guess for just a 5th thing that I love is that it works well. The Glowforge is a beautiful machine. It's a great laser cutter. It will do any job that you need it to do within reason. And it's just a lovely experience using the software in order to build and specify those files. In my next video, you'll see some of the downsides of it, but overall, if you have a Glowforge, if you're looking at a Glowforge, it's a really great entry-level hobbyist machine. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you like about your Glowforge, or any tips and tricks that you enjoy using, and I will see you in the next video.